Hi, I'm Val Peter, and welcome to the pilot episode of Artist Unknown, an introspective web series that delves into the lives of the not yet renowned artists of Toronto. Artist Unknown believes that every artist is famous within his own right. From painters to buskers to music producers, we will enter the unique world of the struggling artist. I'm in the Gallery Italia at the Art Gallery of Ontario. Behind these walls lie the collections of Canadian artists, paintings, sculptures, and photographs, living proof of the end product of a passion between the artist and a vision. But today we're here to talk about a different art form that can't be applied on canvas, or sculpted from clay, or captured on film, but of an art form that can't be seen at all, only heard. Artist Unknown turns its spotlight on electronic music producer Exile.
I'm gonna take you to another dimension. I'm gonna take you to another dimension. I see through you, and it makes me wonder.
Exile, welcome to the series.
Thanks.
I'm excited to have you here.
It's good to be here.
And thanks for coming out to the Art Gallery of Ontario. I know it's a bit of a distance from where you live.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, but it's a great place. It's a center for Canadian artists. You're an aspiring Canadian artist. Exile, that's a name to go by. It's a powerful name. How did that come to be?
Well, basically, my first name's Xyle, K-Y-L-E, and I switched the first letter from K to an X. So it's like an alter ego, like a Jekyll and Hyde, or like a pen name that an author would use, or a stage name.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, so.
And your real name is?
Xyle Robinson.
So you currently reside in Toronto, but you're not natively from here in Toronto, are you?
No, I'm from Peterborough, Ontario, which is like 80 miles northeast, I think, or kilometers northeast of Toronto. And I moved down here in 2005 because I couldn't get a job in Peterborough. I work in digital media, and I had a bunch of crappy jobs, so I just moved down here. Got a job in my field.
Ah, Peterborough. There's some claim to famers that come from Peterborough, aren't there?
Yeah. The actress Stella Warren is from Peterborough. Sebastian Bach from Skid Row, the lead singer of Skid Row,
right,
is from Peterborough, and also Serena Ryder, the folk pop singer, is from Peterborough too.
Serena Ryder, she's about your age. You didn't walk the halls of your high school with her, did you?
No, I didn't. I never knew her. No, she's a couple years younger than me, and she went to a different high school. So, but I know people that know her. So.
Yeah, she's gotten quite famous, and she's doing quite well.
Yeah, she's got a couple hit singles now, and her music's in commercials, and yeah.
Though you grew up in the 80s and 90s, so what was life like in Peterborough growing up in the 80s and 90s?
Well, it's like small town Canadian living. It's like quiet, and you're away from the hustle and bustle of the city. it's slow. Like the pace of life is really slow. Everything is slow. But I noticed last time I was up there, the way people chew their food is slower. Like they chew their food like slower.
It's a slower pace of life.
Everything is slower.
I used to live in the country. I always said you have to drop it down a few gears. to live
Oh
in the
man, you got to
country.
drop it way down.
So you're more of a cosmopolitan person. Like you like the city, obviously.
Yeah, I'm a city slicker. I was born a city slicker. I don't know why. I'm attracted to the energy. I like the hustle and bustle and the people and the lights and everything else. So I was attracted to it.
What is it that you do like of Peterborough? Is there any?
Well, Peterborough is like, when you want to get away from that craziness, go to Peterborough or go to a small town, go back to nature, which is totally healthy. So to do.
So you're pretty artistic. As a child, what were your first memorable artistic impressions?
Well, my parents enrolled me in piano lessons when I was like 7 or 8, and I hated it. I hated them.
That's funny you say that because most people that I talk to, artists, all say that they took piano lessons.
Yeah.
They hated it. It was so structured.
It's really
right?
like structured. It's really regimented. A lot of rules. It's very theoretical, and I'm just like a free thinking artist, and I don't like to be boxed in like that. But I took piano lessons. I learned 3 chords. I learned C major, F, and G7, and I basically made a little short song out of those 3 chords that I knew, and I played it for my mom, and she didn't even care. So I don't know. And then I used to go to my grandparents' place, and I dug out my uncle's trombone. My uncle played trombone in high school or something like that.
Oh, so it runs in the family, music.
Yeah, and so I dug his trombone out, and I used to play it when I was really young, like 5, 6 years old, and I used to love it. And then what else? I played recorder in grade 5 in my class. We used to put on concerts for my school, and my teacher, Mrs. Crookshank, really brought out the performer in me. So I learned a lot from that as well, musically.
So many cities to choose from. What brought you to Toronto?
It was the most logical choice. I was living in Peterborough, and the nearest big city was Toronto, and plus it's the biggest city in Canada, so it was only the logical choice, So
But you also came to Toronto to study, didn't you?
I came to Toronto to study for a couple years, then I went back to Peterborough for 1.5 years, and then I came back to work.
And what did you study here in Toronto?
When I went to Seneca College in 2002 and 2003, and I studied a program called Digital Media Technical Production. So it was like graphic design, web design, 3D animation, sound editing, DVD authoring.
So did you graduated?
I graduated out of that, yeah.
And where did that take you professionally?
Well,
Anywhere?
I got a job in the print industry, in the newspaper print industry. So I worked in that industry for 7 years. And then I also started doing freelance graphic design on the side. So I've been doing that for 6 or 7 years as well.
Oh, congratulations. So you're actually professionally working through art, and you're also doing it,
I'm trying to make money.
sidelining
doing something somewhat artistic, but the old saying like starving artist is very true. Because you do anything creative, and it's just like, it's tough to make a living and pay the bills doing something artistic. So I try to get as close as I can.
I'm totally loving your music. I've listened to it. It's pretty powerful stuff. But
Thanks,
for
yeah.
some viewers, they don't know what is exactly electronic music.
It's music that's created with a machine, with a computer, with software, as opposed to music that's created with what you call real instruments like guitars and drums and piano.
So what got you into it?
Well, I was into electronic music before I was even into rock music, because I played guitar in bands like later on, but I got into electronic music actually before, when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I used to get cassettes of artists like Two Unlimited, CNC Music Factory, Technotronic, old Chicago house, Detroit techno, the early stuff from the 80s. The originators of the Four on the Floor, like like that kind of beat. And I used to listen to the simple melodies and stuff that they do, and that really emotionally kind of did something to me. Like I reacted to it, and it really affected my life.
So electronic music came out what? As far as the first samples of that whole scene was what? The early what? The late 80s?
House music came out of the 80s, but house music is a child of disco. And disco came from rock and blues. So it's basically just part of an evolution. But house music was kind of DJs started sampling vinyl records. With hip hop and with house music, it was kind of like sampling records over and over. So they'd have like a repetitive kind of beat. People would dance to it.
That was what, in the early 90s?
That was in the 80s, and people were hypnotized because it was like underground in the 80s. Nobody knew about this stuff. And then it just grew and became bigger and bigger.
So when was your actual first production that you actually put together in electronic music?
In electronic music specifically, it was when I was about 17. I made 2 CDs. Over grade 11, grade 12, I made 2 CDs of electronic music, and I used a software called Cybersound Studios. This is about in 1998, 1999. And I had a little keyboard plugged into the USB port, I think, and I just like I just made stuff up. And the teacher just let me do it while the rest of the class was doing their main project. The teacher actually let me go off by myself and make this and make these CDs because she just saw potential in me.
That's pretty admirable for those times.
It's pretty amazing, yeah. I liked her a lot. She was a nice lady. And then another big thing that had a huge impression on me was as far as rock goes. When I was about 14, 15, I went over to my friend Brian's place, and he had his Fender Telecaster plugged into a little Marshall amp about this big, and then he had a DOD death metal pedal, distortion pedal plugged into it. He started playing Raining Blood by Slayer, and then he hit the distortion pedal, and the distortion just changed my life. As soon as I heard that driving distortion, that was like the moment where I was like, I gotta get an electric guitar.
Do you like what electronics does to music? How you could distort it, change it, shape it?
Yeah, that influenced my electronic stuff too, because it was an effect that you could put on your instrument.
Which poses the question, is electronic music, by creating it, are you considered a musician?
I believe so, yeah. Because you have to be a musician first and foremost, and you have to know the software that you're using and how to use a computer. And that's a whole huge, big thing in itself.
Because you're composing, you'd have to know time signatures and BPMs.
And you have to know the software and how to construct a song. And a lot goes into it, So a lot of people have the wrong idea about that. They think if it's made in a computer, it's not music, which is just not true.
After I listened to your music, I really couldn't classify it into like one genre, like EDM, electronic dance music. Well, is it only for dance, or you kind of?
That's a new name that they put on it, but my stuff covers a wide gamut of different influences. Like I have world music influences. I have there's dubstep influences in there. There's just dub reggae influences. There's house, synth pop, all kinds of different stuff. Breakbeat stuff, ambient. So I like to keep my music diverse, but I'm trying to all the time narrow it down and simplify it too into one machine, into one sound. So
how would you consider like EDM music as a overall force in the world right now?
Right now, in the times we're living in now, EDM music is probably the biggest genre of music on earth.
In the music industry?
Just period. Like, I mean, if you were to get on a plane and travel the world, it would be house music, it'd be EDM music that everybody would be listening to.
So would it be right to say that rock and roll is dead?
I think rock and roll as a social, political force is pretty much dead. It's had its day. But as far as a genre of music, I think it's going to live on its way into the future. I think it's going to go the way of blues and jazz. I think in the future, you're going to go into a little hole-in-the-wall bar and you're going to go see a rock and roll band, and it's going to be like seeing a jazz band or blues band now. It's always going to be like the history for historical purposes. It's always going to be there in the subconscious, mind of the society. It's always going to live on. But as far as like the mainstream kind of like mind of society, it's not going to be like as influential as it once was, like say in the 60s.
So once you create your music, how do you project it to the world, your music?
I upload my songs onto a website called SoundCloud.
Right, I've heard of it, yes.
It's like Facebook for musicians. So a community of musicians get together, they upload their music, share their music, and you can comment, like, songs. You can post your songs onto Facebook and other social media sites. So it's really good for that.
And what do you go under?
It's SoundCloud.com/Exile Music.
So Exile Music, not just Exile.
No, just Exile Music, yeah.
So ultimately, where would you like to take your music? You're not currently DJing, are you?
No, I'd like to get into it though. I'm gonna work towards that. That's one of my goals. Like I want to get a mixer and get the full gear and actually go and perform my stuff at bars, and then eventually, like ultimately, my ultimate vision would be to perform my stuff in front of a stadium full of 100,000 people and have like big video screens behind me and have like a crazy light show and have everything synced up to my music. Kind of like a Pink Floyd show, you know, that'd be my ultimate goal. So I'm working towards that.
So where do you currently create your music?
In my apartment on my MacBook.
So you're not far from here. What do you say we go over there now and take a look at your platform and how you create?
All right, sure.
So this is the place, eh? This is where you live,
Yep.
work, the whole spiel.
Yeah, this is it.
Do you need anything else out of a studio for what you do?
No, I usually work with like the bare minimum of what I need.
So how long have you been now living here?
I've lived in this place since 2007. March 2007, I think, so.
But you didn't move here from when you came to the city.
No, I lived in about 2 or 3 places before I came here, I think.
So if you had a studio that you would say would be the most preferred, would you want something that's better than what you have now?
Yeah, if I had the money and the budget, yeah.
And that would be what? More equipment? What is it?
It'd be more space and more equipment. Yeah, better computer, faster computer, more RAM, bigger hard drive, more hardware, like keyboards and other things.
And ultimately, you're making your music, so you would like to take this into clubs?
Ideally, yeah, I'd like to DJ my stuff in clubs, yeah.
I'm just wondering if you had to crank up the volume and you were actually testing. You do mixes, right?
Yeah, what do you mean crank up the volume?
Well, if you were testing, don't you need to get a kind of a sound and try your sound out on a higher volume to see what it sounds like?
Oh, like in a club?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice, yeah.
So that would be kind of probably another reason, right?
Yeah.
This screen here is showing me something. This is what you work with?
I use Ableton Live 9. So I drag the window over to my TV. So right now I'm working in my TV.
To produce sound, you just need to what? To have Ableton, which is a... what exactly is Ableton?
Well, nowadays music producers, digital music producers use DAW, D-A-W, which is Digital Audio Workstation. And it's Ableton Live, Cubase, Pro Tools, Logic. There's a lot of them nowadays. So I prefer Ableton, but the industry standard has been Pro Tools for the last, I don't know, 15 years maybe. And but Ableton became like a bigger DAW just in the past like 5-6 years, and it's out of Berlin. It's a German software.
I've heard of it. It's supposed to be cutting edge as far as what most guys use now. Is there a reason?
It's versatile. You can DJ with it, and you can produce music on it in the studio. So, you know, it has that advantage over other DAWs.
So this board here that I'm looking at, that's your interface, and this is what you work with to create.
Yeah, that's the session view. And there's 2 views. If you want to arrange a song, this is the arrangement window. and you can arrange an entire song here. And that's the session view where you make clips, and you drag clips, like each one of these colored boxes with clips here, and then you drag it over into the arrangement window.
I can see you spending lots of hours. Does the time fly when you're working on this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'll get into like a trance and create music, and I'll lose track of time, and 3 or 4 hours will pass by, and I'll be under the impression that it was like a half an hour or an hour, you know. And then I'll wake up out of the trance, and then all this time has gone by, and it's like 3 in the morning, and it's like I'm in a dream.
This track, like for now example, do you have all your tracks on there right now that you could play something?
I have 4 tracks here. I just threw this together before this interview. I have a drum track here. That I made from Linn drums, Linn, Linn drums, and it was a drum machine created in the 80s. And I just made a simple beat. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know if I should turn it up louder.
So it seems to be fine.
And then I threw a bass line. It's just like 2 notes. So this is where I make the actual, I MIDI program the actual notes in here. It's like C and then A sharp. And so if I put it with the drum beat, it's just a simple rhythm of 2 bass notes and a simple drum beat.
So do you have to worry about, I know music kind of myself, so do you have to worry about as far as bars and how many notes to the bar and timing and...
Yeah, that's in the arrangement view.
Time signature?
That's in the arrangement view. So if I bring the bass line over and I put it on the bass line track and I stretch it out, let's make it 8 bars. So what's happening is I have the drums playing here, and this is my little chunk of music. And these dividers here are bars, so I have 8 bars, and it's looping. So I'll have like that's the blue band is the drum beat, and then the gray band is the bass line. And then I also have this other synthesizer loop that I made out of another bass sound. And you'll notice that's the same melody as the bass. It's 2 notes. It's C and A sharp, but I have it arpeggiated with this tool here called the arpeggiator. So if I turn it off, it's just like the bass line. It's 2 notes. It's like 2 half notes.
I've heard that people take samples, so you're working with what Ableton gives you.
Yeah, I'm working strictly in MIDI here. This is all MIDI program stuff.
And what's the other alternative?
Audio.
And what would be that?
So basically, when you go over to the session window, when you create a new track, these strips here, these are all tracks. Just like in the arrangement window, these are all tracks that correspond with the other window. Like they're the same thing. So if you want to create a new track, you go to create, insert audio track, and then it'll put a new audio track there. Or you can go create a new MIDI track, and it'll put a MIDI track there. And MIDI is basically, it's like 1s and 0s. It's like binary. So you can transfer it to any instrument, any electronic instrument, computer, synthesizer. It'll still read the 1s and 0s. It's like vectorized graphic art. It's just it's like digital music. It's a digital music language, basically. Whereas an audio file or an audio type of sound is a waveform. So to be played with like a real instrument, like a guitar or drums or bass guitar or vocals, it's like an actual real sound.
Show me the board now. Show me a song that you've done complete, and show me how many tracks and how it would look if you say say,
Well, let me save
or
this one.
finish. Succulent Fantasy, that sounds pretty complex. So there's a lot of sounds in that. So I was wondering what that would look like.
Yeah, I can show you the file.
So you've been working with us now for how long? Ableton itself?
Since 2008, the end of 2008.
2008. So you're going on to 7 years.
Yeah. And I didn't know anything about Ableton. I bought the program and I read the entire manual. It's about an inch thick. And I sat at my work where I used to work in a quiet place and I read the whole thing.
And how long did it take before you started feeling that you were in control of the program?
I had used other programs before, music making programs before. So I just evolved into Ableton pretty easily.
Do you feel there's a lot more to learn, or that you're pretty much mastering what you need to be able to put out?
No, there's way more to learn.
And
Always.
when you say you need more to learn, like what kind of a part of producing do you need to know?
There's like a million different tools. There's all kinds of different tools and effects, like hundreds of different tools and effects in Ableton, and within those tools and effects there's different dials and faders and different things that you can switch around. You know, it's like, it's huge. It's like massive. This is Succulent Phantasm. So I don't know what you want to see on here. Like,
So I'm just looking. So that is basically your arrangement, I would call it, right?
yeah, and
So that's
these
their
are
full
these are my clips. I don't use all these clips, but these are different clips for it. And then this is the actual arrangement. And I have a certain way that I use Ableton. When I arrange my songs, like you'll notice that this whole chunk is a color, that chunk is a color, that chunk is a color. It's colored like that. That's how I divide the song up. So I have like a verse and a chorus and a breakdown and a verse and a chorus. This song is a little bit odd because there is no verse and chorus. It's kind of like there's many different parts to it.
As far as now having your music, how do you project it to the world right now if you're not playing it in clubs?
I use a website called SoundCloud.
I've heard of that. Do you
Yeah.
find that it's a good platform?
It's alright. Yeah. But there's a million, billion, trillion other artists doing the exact same thing as me that have also uploaded a bunch of songs, and so it's tough. The competition's like anybody can make music, buy a computer and make music now. So the competition's like it's never been ever. Everybody's a musician. Anybody with a laptop.
Is that a good thing?
Ultimately, in the long run, yes, because it's just more it's more fair, it's more democratic. If everybody can have access to making professional sounding music, I think ultimately it's a good thing. You know, I don't have like an elitist view about it, where I think only the best of the best musicians should play music and nobody else can. I think that's ridiculous.
But as far as standing out from the rest, does it make it harder, you think? Because now the market's flooded with more input, more
Pretty
artists, because there's more accessibility.
Yeah, the market is flooded with everything nowadays.
So you think that has a bearing on bringing fame, notoriety to individuals?
Yeah.
But it's an individual art form. It's not kind of like we all sit in the same room and create electronic music together. It's very individualistic, I would.
Nowadays, yeah, it's evolved into that because you have a personal laptop, like a personal computer. Therefore, you make your own personal music.
So you create your songs, and then from here you would, what? Where would you take it after you create it? To the SoundCloud website?
Yeah, you'd want to do like a mix.
So do you have SoundCloud? Like, could you show me how you got your songs set up there? You know, I'm sure there's people that are in the electronic music and they can relate to all this, but for other people, they have no idea, you know, SoundCloud. So this is a platform for anybody to play music.
This is my SoundCloud page.
Peace Pilgrim, hold it up.
You could basically like,
Inner Powwow.
you basically like can upload MP3s onto this site, and they appear in a waveform, and then you can play them. And actually, you can make your songs downloadable too, and you can put an avatar picture for your artists and for your songs, and you could post on other boards that are like the same genre of music as your music, so you can post them all around SoundCloud and share them. and then you can like them, and you can comment on them. It's just like Facebook, basically, except for audio files, and then you can share it just like anything else.
I was listening to all your songs, and you have such unique titles to your music, such powerful sound with unique titles. I was wondering if you could elaborate on songs like Totem, Peace Pilgrim, Cathexis, Bombinate, like Stevie Wonder. There's so many titles that are so unique. For example, Totem.
Well, Totem is like it has kind of a tribal flavor or a sound. So I basically started with the kalimba sound, which is like a stock Ableton sound, and I just built the song from there. And I used the Buddhist monk chant for the kind of like the hook or the catchiest, most dramatic part of the song. And I just built it from there. It has like a world music African kind of flavor to it, and kind of like a Native American kind of sound to it. So that's why I call it Totem, because Totem represents kind of like a physical representation of a spiritual being, basically. So
it has a nice melody to it. I noticed that you put a lot of your vocals, and you make your vocals sound like music.
Yeah, I don't really want the music to be about the vocals. The vocals to me are another instrument.
But I like how you've changed the vocals. I think it's kind of one thing that I've noticed in your music that I can say that's your style is that you have that style of turning in vocals and warping them so that you sound like some music, because sometimes the vocals don't even say anything.
Well, basically I'll write a song in a key, and then I'll warp the vocals to that key. Because if I take a sample of a vocal, it may not be in the right key, so I'll have to transpose it or pitch shift it into that key to match the rest of the song.
So this is your neighborhood, Little Portugal. How's Little Portugal treating you?
That's okay. It's pretty good. It's very ethnically diverse around here. It's like mainly Portuguese, but there's a lot of people that come from small towns around Ontario, and they come down here because of the artistic community down here. So a lot of Portuguese and a lot of hipsters.
What about songs like Peace Pilgrim?
That basically is it's basically, I started with a string sample, a cello sample that was in 4/4 timing. I converted it to 5/4, and I put Lindrums on it, and I added a vocal track to it. Want to turn down here?
Sure. And what about the song? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And basically it's just has kind of a pop music feel with kind of like a house breakdown. And so yeah.
What about Cathexis?
Cathexis is kind of a psychedelic trip in itself. It's about 6 minutes long, and I had an artist named Dream Sheep make the video for me, and it's basically the visuals that go along with the song are very psychedelic. There's lots of mandalas and colorful imagery, because that's what I envisioned when I wrote the song. I wanted like a psychedelic, really intense psychedelic experience for the video. So, because the song is repetitive and it's very kind of trippy, and it's very psychological. It's very hypnotic. So it kind of pulls you in. and it's very danceable. It has elements of house music and breakbeat and many other genres.
So have you ever, there's one more that I was curious about, Inner Powwow.
That's basically kind of a slower, more melancholy kind of a track. It's kind of like has a real hip hop kind of a feel to it. And I use a variety of different samples on it. And it's got kind of like a chugging, kind of a slow melody to it. So it made me think of like a Native American powwow, like the rhythm of it. I don't know if you've seen the videos of powwow, the Native American chiefs dancing. They dance in a certain fashion to a certain rhythm, and the rhythm of the song reminded me of like a powwow. So I called it Inner Powwow. The inner basically represents. The inner powwow to me is a kind of an expression that I made up. It's kind of like your inner soul, your inner spirit, your inner powwow, because a powwow is like a celebration. So it's like the party inside.
Have you ever put any videos to your music?
Yeah, like I said, Cathexis was made by Dream Sheep, and I also have another video by Dream Sheep for my song Within Reach.
Oh, we'll have to check them out.
Yeah.
So you can find those videos at...
They're on my YouTube channel. They're on the Dream Sheep YouTube channel, and they're also on my own YouTube channel.
So I noticed you have such a skill. It's kind of like you have songs that you could be put to any kind of a movie. Have you done any soundtracks?
Yeah, I did a soundtrack for a film called Incident at Ski Lane, and oddly enough, we're on Ski Lane right now. This is Ski Lane.
So you filmed this?
Ski Lane is a back Toronto alley, and it's full of graffiti, and it's full of character. Actually, it's all garages, and it has kind of like a dirty kind of downtown city kind of a feel to it. And a friend of mine filmed a movie, a short film, in a film noir style, just right along this alleyway. And I scored the whole thing, and the whole thing was basically a film noir jazz kind of a style, where I used saxophone, strings, kind of jazz drum samples, things like that.
So you enjoy soundtracking?
Yeah, it's good. I'd like to get more into it.
And scoring, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to get more into it. I've only scored that one film, but that's something I definitely want to pursue.
So I guess we're on our way over to the Lakeview, you said?
Yeah.
That's kind of a landmark here. So this is the Lakeview. It's good that you brought us here. It's nice to get out and break away from your studio. We're in the street. I was just wondering, why is it considered a landmark in Little Portugal here?
The Lakeview? They filmed a movie here, I think. The movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise in the 80s. I don't know, have you seen that?
Yeah, I remember that. Actually, that you mentioned it. When I walked in the bar, I could see it happening here.
Yeah. That's the only movie that... Apparently, there's been lots of movies. Apparently, Mr. T filmed the movie here. And there's been some music videos that were filmed here. So, it's a pretty legendary place.
Yeah, that was that movie with Bill Brown, and they were like bartenders.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an interesting day interviewing you. I was asking you earlier about the concept behind the actual songs that you create. What I didn't ask you was, what is the actual, how do you get these titles? Because I find that the titles are so well suited to the emotion of the sound of the song.
Well, I come across weird words like in everyday life when I'm online, when I'm reading stuff, when I'm walking out on the street. I'll come across like just weird, bizarre sounding words, and I'll record them onto my phone in my Notepad app. I have a huge log or a huge reserve of different words that I come across, like 100 different words, and I'll basically write a song and I'll match the song with a word. So if I write a sad song, I'll match it with a sad word. And then I also come up with like combinations of words like inner powwow, succulent phantasm. And it'll, basically just to match the mood of what I'm trying to get across.
Well, it seems to work because I think it suits it very well. Another pivotal question I always ask all artists is, what is it that you think is the role of the artist in society?
Well, I think there's always things going on in everyday life underneath the surface, and I think artists address what's going on in the subconscious mind of society, and they reflect back to the society what's going on in the subconscious mind of the society as a whole.
Right.
So I think the artist provides meaning where there is no meaning. So we live in chaos every day, and things happen, bad things happen. But I think art actually provides some sort of a meaning amongst that chaos.
We all have our icons, our heroes, things that influence us. I was wondering, have there been any key artists or sounds or anything that's influenced you in your artistic expression?
Well, with Exile, one of my biggest musical influences was a guy called Burial, and he's based in London, England, and he's like a dubstep artist, and he made an album called Untrue, released in 2007 on Hyperdub. And it was very dark and melodic and emotional and very progressive sounding. He was sampling pop artists like Christina Aguilera, people like that, and I drew a lot of influence from that. Also, there's a guy named Dubtrack, a Toronto artist. He's electronic,
I've heard of him.
Like a tribal artist, tribal dance music, and he made an album called The Dancer Behind the Mask, which is a progressive tribal kind of album, but it's got elements of like retro, so it sounds like early 90s kind of. So I draw a lot of influence from him, because when you put it on, it's like it transports you to the Amazon basically. So you go right into that world. Another artist that I'm influenced by is a guy named Mike Paradinas, and he's based in England, and he goes under the name Music, but he spells it Mu, like the Greek letter Mu, dash Z-I-Q, like music. And he made an album called Royal Astronomy, and it's just like symphonic. It's basically like strings and symphonic sounds, orchestral sounds mixed with like break beats and drum and bass beats. So he made this album in 1999, and it was like way ahead of the time. That's a huge influence on me for years now. For over a decade, that's been a huge influence on me. Some of my other influences like Aphex Twin, Fortet, Calm Trues, Laserhawk, Pink Floyd, Peter Gabriel.
Now these are all influences, but has there been any advice that you've been given through the years that's also kind of fueled your inspiration for creativity?
I was told once one of the best pieces of advice that I was ever told was there's no meaning in anything. Everything is meaningless. It's only about the meaning that you personally give to it. You personally put your own meaning onto it, your own bias onto it. So basically everything is subjective. And so I think that's what happens in everyday life, and that's what happens in art. Art is like the actual real example of that, because you put your own, if you look at a painting or listen to a song, you put your own meaning onto it. There is no meaning, it's just chaos. But you put your own bias, your own meaning on it. So I think that was very valuable to me personally.
So is there an actual meaning that Exile music's trying to project to the world?
I think it's based on, I'm trying to recreate the emotional chemistry that I felt with the early albums.
Right.
That I listened to, the early house albums, like Two Unlimited, early Nirvana, like Metallica, stuff like that. I'm trying to recreate that emotional chemistry that I had. But I'm trying to spread it out to the masses and have it as a personal experience as well, So.
Well, I think as artists, we all want to be received, accepted, and acknowledged. with that train of thought, has there been anything that's inspired you for your music to continue on?
Just basically just like basking in the emotional glory of what you've just done as an artist. It's a very intimate, personal thing. If you write a song, that's like, or if you paint a picture, that's like part of your body, not physically, but it's a part of your spiritual or emotional body. It's an extension of your own psyche. So I think that would be definitely.
So what would you say that is the best satisfaction you can get as an artist?
And watching other people enjoy it.
Right, so it's sharing. I would think
It's about sharing, it's about your own personal thing, and it's about sharing it with other people, just basking in that whole energy that you're creating, you know?
Well, it's funny that you're talking about basking in energy. I'm basking in the sound of people around here. Hopefully, I hope the recording's going to come out, because it's like Murphy's Law. I find that when you do film, my art is film.
Yeah.
And putting film together. And I find that film has a way of putting Murphy's Law out at its best, because like you'll start filming and all of a sudden, like we just had a flock of like 7 girls and 1 guy walk in, and boy, they're talking it up. So I just hope the sound
Perfect
comes
timing.
out. But it's been a great interview. It's been an interesting day interviewing you. Thanks for letting us in to your creative space.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it.
And I hope you the best, and may the power be with you for all your upcoming sounds that you're creating.
Oh, there's more music to come. Lots more.
I'm looking forward to it. And I'll look into your movie that you had, the soundtrack, and into your videos that have been done. So just wondering, is there any last words that you'd like to leave with us, with Artists Unknown, before we finish the interview?
Well, I just want to thank Artists Unknown and everybody involved with the show, and you, Val Peter, for giving me this opportunity. It's been a great blessing, and I hope it really helps me. So thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure having you.
I really
on the
appreciate
show.
it. Yeah,
definitely.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Artists Unknown was more than happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I wish you the best.
Well, there you have it, people. An artist that begins his creative process with an urge instead of a vision, driven by the sole need to create. It's been a pleasure interviewing Exile, and I wish him the best on his artistic endeavors. Be sure to check him out on soundcloud.com/Exile Music. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the pilot episode of Artists Unknown. If so, please subscribe, because it's you, the audience, that matters to the artist. This is Val Peter. Until next time.